Breaking news hits, red banners flash across the screen, and someone gets indicted. Instantly, the court of public opinion bangs the gavel. We assume the accused is guilty. The case is closed, and they are heading straight to prison. Jumping to a guilty verdict based on a headline is a dangerous misunderstanding of how the criminal justice system operates. Indictment is the starting line of the criminal justice process, not the finish line. There are generally two ways the government can bring these initial charges. At the federal level, the Fifth Amendment requires prosecutors to use a grand jury. The grand jury process is completely one-sided. The defense attorney isn't allowed in the room, and the defendant isn't there to object. The prosecutor controls the entire presentation, showing their side of the story to a panel of citizens, while the defense side remains completely empty. At this stage, the prosecutor only needs to establish probable cause, meaning it is reasonably likely a crime occurred. The evidentiary bar is so low that there's an old legal joke. A competent prosecutor could get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. Many states use a second path, combining a criminal complaint with a preliminary hearing. Here, a judge decides if there is probable cause, and the defense actually gets the opportunity to cross-examine witnesses and challenge the evidence. Regardless of the path, the government possesses vast resources and a very low evidentiary hurdle to formally accuse someone of a crime. Because the state holds all the cards early on, the system deploys extreme legal counterweights to ensure fairness down the road. Once an indictment drops, a long procedural road begins. The accused faces an arrest, the formal arraignment, pretrial motions, the discovery phase where evidence is shared, and eventually the trial itself. The foundational reason for this exhaustive process is the penalty involved. Unlike civil lawsuits dealing with money or contracts, criminal law threatens a citizen's actual physical liberty. The state is attempting to lock a human being in a cell. To protect citizens, the system activates a constitutional shield, the presumption of innocence and proof beyond a reasonable doubt. In practice, the defendant doesn't lift a finger. The government bears the entire burden of proving guilt to a near absolute certainty. This high evidentiary burden is the primary equalizer. It protects citizens against the government's relatively easy path to an indictment. That burden of proof is reinforced by constitutional rights, triggered the moment a charge is filed. The Fifth Amendment guarantees the right against self-incrimination, ensuring a defendant's silence cannot be weaponized as an admission of guilt. In Miranda versus Arizona, the Supreme Court made it mandatory for police to explicitly inform suspects of their right to silence before interrogation. Next is the Sixth Amendment right to legal counsel. A defense attorney serves as the ultimate shield against the vast legal machinery of the state. In Gideon versus Wainwright, the court guaranteed this protection for all citizens, establishing the public defender system for those who cannot afford an attorney. Adding the remaining trial protections, the right to know specific charges, a speedy and public trial, and to cross-examine opposing witnesses. This specific combination of rights transforms the one-sided accusation of a grand jury into a fair, balanced, two-sided fight in the courtroom. To understand exactly how high that criminal standard of proof truly is, we can contrast it with the civil legal system. This chart shows the difference in those thresholds. In civil court, where only money is at stake, the plaintiff relies on a preponderance of evidence. They only need to prove a 51% likelihood of liability. But criminal court requires approaching that 99% certainty mark. These conflicting thresholds create a legal paradox. It is entirely possible for a citizen to be acquitted in criminal court, but found liable in civil court for the exact same event. The O.J. Simpson trials serve as the ultimate historical proof of this dual system outcome. Simpson was acquitted by a jury in criminal court under the high standard of reasonable doubt, but a civil jury later found him liable for wrongful death based on a preponderance of the evidence. The criminal standard is pushed to the absolute limit for one reason: to protect citizens from having their freedoms stripped away by the unchecked power of the state. Hearing about an indictment simply means the government convinced a grand jury or a judge that they have enough evidence to start a fight. But starting a fight is entirely different from possessing the concrete evidence required to win it beyond a reasonable doubt. An indictment is merely the starting line, and knowing your constitutional rights is your best defense against the machinery of the state.